Good evening. This is a meditation on the Last Supper. Such a mysterious night to have the people who were closest to Jesus and to have the person who was going to betray him gathered at the same table. As I've been thinking about it this week, I'm going back to a dinner I attended many years ago. A couple of years out of college, after I left college or graduated, I decided to go to Boston and work for a while, and then my plan was to travel through Europe and go back to Los Angeles where I was living and go to graduate school. So I came to Boston and I traveled through Europe, but I never went back to Los Angeles. But my first Thanksgiving that fall, some friends invited me to go with them to the home of some friends of theirs who were hosting Thanksgiving. And for me still, it's the ideal Thanksgiving, where the only connection, we were all strangers, there must have been 40 people there, we each brought some food, and the only connection to each other was that we were friends of friends of friends. And we spent the day together. It was a beautiful fall day, and we went for a short hike in the woods, and we ate together, and we all visited in our small groups, and we sang some songs together, and we ended with the fire in the fireplace and just relaxing. It was a wonderful evening and a wonderful feast. A few months later, I learned that the couple who had hosted the dinner were getting a divorce, and that they had actually been seeing other people for quite a long time, and that their new partners were also at that dinner. And it took me many years, and even now, to wonder about that. I had no idea that there was that dark undercurrent at when we shared all that evening together. And so there have been times when it's proven to me that can never gather together in perfect love, that there's always something shady going on. And then there's times when I've just found it breathtaking that the goodness and the longing for connection and the sense of Thanksgiving prevailed over all of that. And that's really where I am now. I feel there was a grace in that day. And I even think of the four of them and how they must have felt being at that feast with their own longing, their own sense of things ending and beginning, their realization that nobody else knew what was going on. But there was a tremendous grace in that gathering, and I think it was the grace of the Last Supper, and I think it is the grace of the church. The grace that brings us all together rather than dividing us. The grace that shines through the shards of our lives and the shards of our souls. The grace that makes of our imperfections a beautiful prism that lights the world. The grace that makes our compassion, changes our shame into wisdom and our fear into compassion. It is a grace that helps us to see that we are bonded with a storekeeper in China as much as we're bonded with a teacher in Korea and a bureaucrat in Germany and a farmer in the United States. If anything has been revealed that in these last couple of months is that there is a human bond that cannot be broken. That bond is a grace, and being able to see it is a grace, which doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to the horrors, but it allows us to look upon the horrors with a steadiness and to see in that darkness a path through to a new way of living. When we think of the Last Supper and we think of John, who was the beloved of Jesus, we think of Peter, who was so wrong-headed and really insisted on showing love his own way and was much more self-preoccupied than self-aware. And we think of Judas, who betrayed his friend for what he thought was a higher good, who was unable to see God's hand in human imperfection. We are at that table, and And sometimes we're Peter, and sometimes we're Judas. But we are all gathered at that one table, and we all share in a grace that's transformational. A grace that will knit our souls together, that will guide us through these days, that will show us how to bring life and assurance to each other without being Pollyannish and without being glib. This night of all nights, there's a grace in remembering this Last Supper. There's a grace in remembering this new commandment of Jesus, because it's not simple. And it doesn't lead to paradise, it leads to the cross. And just as Jesus was able to hold that balance of love and betrayal, of darkness and light, of suffering and hope, so we have been baptized into the grace to be able to do that. And we have been baptized into the grace to forgive those who have betrayed us. And we have been baptized into the grace to forgive ourselves for the betrayals that we have inflicted. And even in our separate spaces this night, Peter is with us, Judas is with us, Christ is with us. I want to share with you a poem that I just discovered recently. It's a poem by a man named Killian MacDonald, and his collection of poems is called God Drops and Loses Things. And he describes Judas from Christ's point of view. Judas takes the bread I dip into the wine, extend across the table. He knows I know, but won't betray him. A twisted heart, no doubt wanting a different kingdom. When he eats my body, a dark presence enters him, and I must let my Judas go. I urge my friend to act quickly. Before we say the last prayer and sip the last cup of wine, he slips into the black night and scuttles toward the temple. He once loved me, loves me now. I grieve for the companion who stood beside me when Lazarus stumbled from the tomb. May we ourselves open our hearts to forgive the betrayer.